Mystery Theory. Today, I want to share with you a story time that is coming with a bunch of disclaimers before I even start, and some extra other added stories to this story time. Okay. Number one is I've been thinking about creating a cozy corner in my house to record videos, but the kind of videos I like to watch, which are videos where somebody is sitting down, chatting in a very comfortable place, and it seems like a more casual video slash atmosphere for the video. And this is my favorite corner of the entire house. And I have a chair and that somebody found on the side of the road, and I adopted it into my house. I put a cover on it, and I bought this lamp for super cheap. And with my windows open every morning, I sit here, and I love to read my Bible and listen to the birds and the squirrels and the woodpecker that loves that one tree outside. And I feel good in this corner, and I thought, why am I gonna create a corner for filming when it's already here? And this might change the way it looks, but welcome to my favorite corner. I am looking at a picture I have behind my bed, or that wall. It's this beautiful fall picture with trees, and they're all full of red leaves, and it's in the country, and the leaves are also on the ground, and I've been making my room a fall commercial, basically. Now I sit here and chores. If you live in a house, you're raised and expected to clean up after yourself, to help keep up with the house. If there's a project where we need to paint, you're expected to help. If you are hungry, you're expected to cook yourself a meal because you're taught how to do these things from early on. And another thing that's also very different, I feel like, is that when you finish elementary school, you go directly into high school, and there's no middle school. So you do 6 years in elementary school, and then you do 6 years of high school. And then if you're smart enough, because school is really hard, it's only 4 hours. There's no sports, not one elective, and there's no multiple choice. That does not exist. And you also have mandatory exams in January and you have to pass those in order to move on to the next year. And those exams go through everything you learned in that set year. So I'm not saying it's better or it's worse. I'm saying that there's a lot more pressure on you as a kid, because school is hard, and on top of that, you're a person who needs to clean your room, have clean clothes, and a lot of responsibility is given to kids, which, if you ask my opinion, it's a good thing. But you also grow up faster because of it, because you're not protected, which I feel like sometimes creates the most immature adults in the world sometimes. But it was just different. I also have to say that I've always been ahead of myself. And what I mean by that is I had and I still do have this need of learning. Like, I always need to know about something. And it doesn't have to be academically. I need to know how to butcher chicken. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even if I don't, even if that's not what I want to do, and maybe that's graphic, I'm sorry. Or like how to grow an onion from a seed, which most people don't do that. My brain needs to know those things, and that's because of another reason. But by the age of 3, I learned to read all my books by memorizing every single word. And my mom used to have a little tiny store with my aunt, like a neighborhood market, and I would sit down at the tender age of 3 or 4 in front of it, and I would read to myself the books that my mom and my dad used to read to me every night. Soon enough, by the age of 5, I got sick, and I needed to be in bed because of my liver. And my dad introduced me to encyclopedias, but these encyclopedias were kids' encyclopedias, and I discovered the world because I could read these things, but I also was learning something. And all that to say is that I was always kind of like a few years ahead of myself, and It's just because of the way that my brain works. Now, this will take us to the year 1995, when I was in the 7th grade, and I lived in a tiny, tiny, tiny beach town. My house was, the road that would go up from the beach. Then there's the main road by the beach. And, all the roads, I lived 6 blocks away from high school. So I had to walk 6 blocks to go to high school. And the high school was basically facing, east, same way that my house did. And was by the other side of the beach. Okay. I'm trying to give you an atmosphere of what this looked like. So, I'm wearing my glasses because I know my camera is gonna shut off at 20 minutes, so I'm trying to keep my eye on the red dot. And that's probably why I'm kind of obsessively watching the little screen. But I started high school and I was very sheltered by my parents. They sent me to this elementary school that it was a convent. So I was surrounded by nuns, and I grew up in the Catholic Church. And so when I graduated elementary school, I was thrown into high school with a bunch of kids I've never met in my life because they went to public school and I didn't. Not only that, public school was a different thing for me. It was like, what the heck? This is so fun. What was I doing over there? And so I started high school, and I met this girl that, funny enough, all my friends' names, and I realized this as I was thinking about this video, they all start with a V. So I'm gonna have to be V this, V that, to keep them straight in my head. But I met this girl. Her family was from Russia, and her parents were very different from my parents. My mom especially, cared about what everyone thought of me. Like, way too much. And I met this girl V. I go to her house and I meet her parents, and her parents were like kind of like more like hippies, but not really hippies, like normal looking people, but with very liberal view of the world. And I was coming from, in my parents' house, they were very conservative. And I'm not even talking about politics, although yeah, it kind of matches it, but I was under a strict rule of a king at home, and I meet this girl whose parents are the coolest thing in the world, and they trusted her. They were very much open-minded to the idea of making mistakes, and if you do, you learn and you face the consequences. Where I at home was kind of like the opposite. You try to avoid making a mistake because you look stupid. sister Al, her boyfriend, all of his friends, like, I'm not joking, like 8 guys, like I said, 4 years older than we were. We would all hang out at V's house, and what I'm saying is, like, we would get off of high school Friday at noon, because it's usually, I think at the time I was going from 8 in the morning till noon. Then we would go straight to her house, come up with some money, make food, buy drinks, and yeah, we probably weren't drinking Kool-Aid, but excuse me, and then I have a frog in my throat. But then we would just spend the night there. Like, I would try to stay. It's 5 in the morning. You know, as you can see, it's still dark outside. I haven't had breakfast. My stomach is gonna make noises. Anyway, so we'd go to her house and stay for the weekend. And there was nothing malicious. Like, we were seriously just playing card games. And the parents were right there. Sometimes they would play with us. And then about, midnight, they would go to bed. And we'd stay up all night. And probably go to bed at 5 in the morning and sleep most of the day. Like I said, there was nothing, like, inappropriate or weird other than we were drinking beer. That's not even a thing. But between girls and boys, and my mom was obsessed with the idea that boys wanted to get in your pants, and that you just stay away from them, and she would have never allowed this to happen in my house or her house. But this wasn't her house, and she was losing her marbles because she couldn't control what was happening at their house. And I was very insisting in going to V's house every weekend. Now, V's sister Elle and her boyfriend had this group of boys that were friends with him, and they looked at me and my friend V as little girls. They were 16, 17, and they would look at us like, oh, you're a little girl, just started high school, and they would just hang out with us, but look at us like little sisters. That was my entire 7th year of high school, and V and I got so super close, and we started like this super close, and almost like we were inseparables. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We'd go to school and then we'd hang out, and her house was funner than my house, so we were mostly at her house. I remember one Saturday night, my mom knocks on the door and she's like, excuse me, I am here to check on Letty. And I'm like, hi, do you need something from me? She's like, no, I just want to talk to V's mom and talk to you for a second. So she talks to me for a second, and then she goes talk to my friend's mom, my super cool mom. And she's like, well, I am just worried about her staying here, but I can't really say no because she won't listen. I was a rebel since I was 5 years old, okay? So I just don't. Hard to control, little girl, but it was because I didn't agree with the way my parents saw the world, and I, a different person, and even from the tender age of my sister was born, I was jealous, so I decided to go and spend the summer with my grandparents and then didn't want to come back. I know. Anyway, so they talk, the moms talk, and I'm gonna call this mom A. A tells my mom and says, listen, there's nothing going on. The girls are playing cards with the boys, but this is my house, and I know nothing is happening to what you're thinking could be happening. And my mom was there, and so my friend's mom invited her in and showed her. She had a huge kitchen with like kind of a family room area, and we were all there. We were drinking our mate over there and playing card games. Some of the boys were sitting on the couch just talking and said, this is what it looks like. They're not doing anything wrong. And yeah, I mean, you have nothing to worry about. That's what she told my mom. Fast forward to maybe October of that year, which was 95, I think. I'm not gonna pick up the phone. So we fast forward to meeting this new friend that joined the group. I guess he was a friend with my friend's sister's boyfriend since they were little, but he'd never come to the house or anything. And my parents knew his parents. Like I said, we live in a tiny town at the time, so everyone knew of everyone around them. And he was joining the group, okay? And we're gonna call him D as David. Why am I making this so hard on myself? So, he's a pretty cool guy. He is so super nice. Way too nice. Like, almost like, can you just try to be a little bit more normal? Because you're like, something must be wrong with you if you're this nice. And he was maybe, I think he was 3 years older than me, maybe 2, I don't know. We were pretty close in age. And eventually months passed, and I don't know why, but we started this boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, but nothing special. Like, we were holding hands and kissing, and super, like, he was so super respectful and so super hyper, way too hyper aware of being, I guess he was a sensitive guy. I don't know, but my mom loved him to pieces. My mom would have married me to the guy if she could. And soon after, he met my parents, like, because he was walking me home or whatever. And my parents fell in love with him. Like, I thought my mom needed to marry him because I was like, man, I like him, but I don't like him that much. So I, have this super sweet and kind of innocent relationship with this boy, and we're still staying here at my friend's house on the weekends, and he's sleeping with the boys, I'm sleeping with the girls. We are like almost like friends, like very good friends. And then he started suffocating me. Oh my gosh, this man was suffocating me. At the time, no cell phones, of course, or at least not for us over there. And so he knew that So we keep being boyfriend, girlfriend for a while, and so my battery died, and I had to go replace it, and then it wouldn't turn on. The angle is going to be completely off because I had a temper tantrum for a second, but you're welcome. Now you know what happened in the meantime. So, anyway, I keep seeing this guy. The story doesn't want to come out. I was seeing this guy, D. I hope he never watches this video because he's really such a nice guy. But I remember this one time, we were sitting. My friend's house was kind of higher from the road, and you have to come down the steps to get into the sidewalk, I guess. And my friend, that one I met and was hanging out at her house, V, she had a childhood best friend that lived across the street. And let me tell you, they were kind of growing apart because she was a year younger than my friend V. So she was still, they were still in different schools, and V and I became inseparable. So they were having some kind of beef, as some kids would say. Anyway, so they would look at each other, because people live a lot more outside over there. So we would sit in her front porch, garden area, and we could see her childhood best friend, who was also, her name also started with V. So, V from across the street, and be my friend, two different V's. So I remember this one day I was sitting with my, I'm gonna call him boyfriend at the time, and we're sitting on the steps, and I see this car going to the girl from across the street, B, house. And I remember how this guy got out of the car, and it was probably 5 seconds from the moment he closed the door and got into this across the street house, and I fell in love with him. Like, I cannot tell you why. It was probably very superficial, maybe super shallow of me, but I loved him from that very moment. And I'm saying this as I'm sitting by whom my boyfriend was at the time, but I knew I didn't like him as a boyfriend. Like, he was kind and I loved being his friend, but it wasn't gonna work out. I knew it was never gonna work out, and I guess I didn't want to be mean. So anyway, but I remember his face that day when I saw this other guy, and he probably noticed that I noticed the guy, and I probably stared, like, I don't know what I'm saying, but something like that. So here's D, and he asked me, do you know the girl from across the street? Or do you know her brother? And I say, oh, I didn't know he was her brother. And he proceeds to tell me that they have the same dad, but a different mom, and this guy lives on the other side of town. So we lived in the beachy, hardworking, medium class place, and he lived on the other side where it was people maybe had a harder time. Anyways, but he was driving a car and he didn't look like he was struggling, you know. I just want to give you an idea. Anyway, so I remember that was the first time I saw him and I was in love. I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't explain you why. Like I said, it was probably something super shallow. I'm gonna describe him to you and maybe why he clicks in my head. But he was, this guy was a soccer player and he was playing for our town league. My dad was a fan of that soccer team and I was supposed to be a boy. My mom and dad thought I was gonna be a boy. Even though they didn't know, they kind of in their heads thought I was gonna be a boy, and so I was raised as like a unisex kind of kid. You know, I never was a girly girl, and you know, I grew up watching soccer games and going to the field, and my uncle was into playing soccer at the beach, and so I was very much a tomboy for the longest time. And I remember the first thing I noticed about this guy were his legs, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I know, super shallow, I know. So my boyfriend at the time, he proceeds to tell me the story about this guy because he knew that family a little bit. And so he was telling me that he was playing soccer for our town's team. There's two, but one of them. And, you know, that this and that. And I was like, oh, interesting. Anyway, as time passes, I am more and more looking out the window, hoping that this random guy I saw once in my life comes back. Again, I don't know how to make sense out of that, but eventually I felt bad and I told my boyfriend that I just didn't feel the way he felt about me, and even though I wasn't planning on finding another boyfriend because I was obsessed with this other guy I just saw once, and he does not know I exist. Mind you, I promise you, and this probably is going to be in two parts because it's a really long story, but he did not know I was breathing in this earth. Like, he didn't even acknowledge that anybody was. And probably that's what I liked about him, because I am clearly not okay. So then he is like, okay, I told Dee that we needed to break up, and I just wasn't ready to be in a relationship with anybody, and I didn't want to say, yes, you're smothering me, and I feel like every time you hug me or something, I feel like I'm going to die or anything like that. But so, let's see if it follows my camera. It's focused on somewhere up here. I'm right here. I know I'm dark and that's light, but I'm here. Okay, if I'm out of focus, you don't need to see my face. So we break up, and my boyfriend, he was now my ex-boyfriend, he was really heartbroken about it. My mom was heartbroken about it. Like, she thought I was clearly gonna marry this guy because he was so perfect, and I'm like, this other guy, which, I mean, probably should have been one of the reasons why, now that I think about it, but it was just a normal thing that I think it would have happened whether I saw this guy, because again, I haven't met him, but I saw him or not. Now, you have to understand that for an ADHD brain, it's either uninterested, I don't care about this, or I need to know everything about everything on this one subject or this one person. So I literally was obsessed and wanted to know about this guy who was so mysterious, who would come in his car and just show off his little, well, huge soccer player legs, and I like them. And so the summer came, and the relationship between V, my friend, and V from across the street started to resume, I guess. They were gonna go both to the same school now. V from across the street was gonna come to our school, and I don't know if that's what's gonna, I don't know why. I don't remember, but I thought kind of convenient. I like her brother, and now we're friends. Awesome, right? But I never said anything to her, or even V, my friend, my OG friend. Now the summer passed, and we're like 4 inseparable friends. V, my friend, V from across the street, me, and D, which was my ex at the time. He loved to go out everywhere with us, and we were growing up and started our own little group of friends, kind of separated from the OG sister's boyfriend friends, even though we still play card games and we still did a lot of things together. But we kind of became like, super close friends. Now, the relationship with V from across the street turned into a friendship, really. It was convenient when they started talking again and started being friends, but I really like V from across the street, and she liked D, my ex-boyfriend. She really liked him. So I was thinking, maybe I can get some extra points if I can get D with V from across the street. And mind you, she thought that because we were together at some point that I was gonna be opposed to her being with him. I'm like, girl, you can have him. You can totally have him. And so when she said this to me, I started working my magic with D and trying to notice her as possibly a girlfriend. Months pass, and my original friend V finds out that I like, somehow, and I don't remember how, she finds out that I like her friend's brother, V from across the street's brother. And she started disliking me for whatever reason. Like, we were sisters, we were so super close, and now she didn't like me at all. I think, and that's why I'm not saying name or naming names, I think she liked him. Like, she knew of him because he was the brother of her best for friends, and she starts hanging out with another girl who, by the way, she's also V. Her name also starts with a V. And I'm like, how many names with a V? Well, they were all together. I, at the time, was a little bit butthurt about her all of a sudden just leaving me out, and just, I don't know, she was icing me out, I guess. And I didn't get it. And I am a kind of person where I like to talk about stuff. Even back then, if you have a problem, come say it to my face. I'm not gonna be mad about it. I just really like to know why you are having this issue with me right now. But she wouldn't talk to me. So it was, now we were a trio where it was V from across the street, D, my ex-boyfriend, and I. We became inseparable. V from across the street eventually started dating D, my ex, and I was so happy for them. So happy for them. I just could not believe, like, I wanted D to be happy, and I couldn't be that for him, but I knew that V would, because she was really into him. He was a great guy. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with me. So, anyway, V and D started being a couple, and like super, again, kissy and, you know, very superficial kind of teenager boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Now, my friend V, as I stated, she just iced me out, and I stopped going to her house. But V from across the street, kind of like logging trucks. I mean, welcome to Oregon. Rude. So I started hanging out at V from across the street house. We'd leave high school, go to her house, and I wouldn't spend the weekends there, but I spent most of the day there, and then I would go home and whatever. Now, at this time, since I was more near, in her house, I started seeing the mysterious guy in the red car coming more often, and he still wouldn't bat an eye, like he didn't acknowledge I existed. I soon after realized he had a girlfriend, wherever he lived at the time, and he was very happy with her. Let's call her A. Gosh, it's either A or V. Okay, well, never mind. His girlfriend, they were fine, and he didn't notice me. I promise you, he didn't see me. Like, I was invisible, and V, his sister, half-sister, knew I liked him, so she always tried to invite him to do things with us, or like if we were gonna go for a walk at the beach, if we were going to go to a festival in our neighborhood, if we were gonna go to a store and buy beer, like she just would invite him to do things, but he would just not be interested. And not only that, like he didn't even say hello to me. It's like I didn't exist. Of course, that was hurting my feelings because I was dying on my inside, and he did not notice me. Like, am I that bad looking, or am I, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, fast forward to maybe January. stay for a while and then go. Like I said, never hang out with us, never went with us anywhere. And at that point, I was taking it very personal, thinking that he just didn't like me, or I don't know. I was like, are you racist? What's your problem? Mind you, okay, that's a joke, okay? Anyway, so when one day he stopped coming, like, at all. It might have been started in December, but like, December is party time. Like, you just finish school. I believe we finish school the first week of December, and then it's Christmas, and then the New Year, and then exams in January if you are going to go to your next grade. So December, I'm having a blast. I'm living my best life and enjoying the holidays. Remember, this is South America, so it's hot. It's the East Coast, so it's humid, and we live by the beach. So I basically lived in my swimsuit, and I was dark as night because I was in the sun all day. So I was living my best life, but I noticed he stopped coming. And in the meantime, V, D, and me, we're still being super close friends. And I was just the third wheel at that point, because I'm like their boyfriend, girlfriend, and I am just third wheel that's going with them wherever they're going. So I remember that I was kind of curious about him not coming, and eventually my friend B said, I think my brother is going through something and I don't know what it is. And I was like, oh darn, like, great, you're going through something, you stopped coming and seeing your dad. Great, what a great son. But this was for a few weeks, like, I don't even remember, but maybe 3 weeks, starting sometime in December, and eventually in January, sometime in January, he starts coming back. And there was this one weekend where we were gonna go to this store to buy beer, and his sister tried it once again. He's like, D, L, and me, we're all gonna go to get some beer at this one little tiny place that is still open. It was dark at night. Said, do you want to give us a ride? And I don't know why he said yes. Who knows why he said yes? Okay, because like I said, he would always turn us down, but I was like, okay, he said yes. So V, my friend D, and we get in the car, and instead of somebody sitting in the front, we all sit in the back. I always like to make a joke of, if we were sitting somewhere, I would sit in the middle, V on one side and D on the other one, even though they're together. I don't know, it was a joke, it was a bad joke, okay? So here I am sitting in the car, and the one thing I have to look at right in front of me is the windshield and the mirror, and I remember that was the first time he noticed I existed. I'm sure he knew I was gonna get in the car, and I know he knew that what my name was and everything, but it's like, I was like, I don't know, a leaf in a tree, like, there, but really not interesting. So I remember he looks through the mirror to talk to his sister and ask where we're going and why, D, this other guy, wouldn't sit with him in the front. And he looks at me through the mirror, distance, from me. I was like, well, he finally saw me. He now knows I live in planet Earth. I breathe the same oxygen he does. And, yay. So then it turned awkward, like, for the rest of the trip. Mind you, we were going to drive like 5 minutes away. We weren't going on a road trip across the country. So he, the boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, he goes to the front, sits with him, and I'm just glued to that middle seat, and I'm like, did this just really happen? Like, did he actually notice me? It's ridiculous. But I can feel all the bubbles in my chest, all the weird feelings. And my friend, she looks at me, she's like, what? Like, what did just happen? Anyway, it was the most awkward silence as we were driving to the store. And then I need to get out of the car, because I don't want my friend to go and stay with her brother in the car after that awkward, we're staring at each other through the mirror situation. So we get to this tiny store where you have to knock on a window so they would open and sell something to you, because again, this is a third world country, and burglaries and that kind of thing. Oh, tell me that that's still recording. Let me check, hold on. So anyway, it was recording still, even though I was going to sleep. But I think I'm gonna... Okay, let's keep going for a minute. So I get out of the car, go with my friend, buy the beer, talk to this guy, and I'm freaking out. Like, okay, now I don't know if I like this much attention on me, So, but my friend's like, I think what happened is he broke up with his girlfriend. And, that might be something he's going through, or he was going through, and now he's done with her, and I don't know what the hell. And so in my head, I'm like, I can still feel the bubbles. Like, it's funny. Like, this is 30 years later. What do you mean? I still, not 30, but almost. And so I remember, just standing by this guy's window where we're buying the drinks and just talking to her and like completely freaking out on my inside. I was like, okay, now he doesn't have a girlfriend now. Okay, noted. And he just noticed me in the car, and now I feel like, now my camera is shut off, so I can to go replace the battery. That was when everything started. Like, that was the second where I was like, maybe I do have a chance with this guy. Maybe I'm not as invisible as I think I am. And maybe this is gonna lead somewhere. Okay. I was hoping that was gonna be the case. So we get back in the car, and I'm still, even right now, I can still feel the bubbles in my chest. I am feeling so kind of excited and happy, and at the same time, I want to run away from this situation where I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable. Not like, when you want something really bad, and then when you're right there, you're almost gonna get, you're like, should I want this? Should I? Or is this in my head? Am I making this stuff up? And so I get back in the car, and I sit on, by the window, not in the middle, but still in the back bed. And we just go, it's awkward silence all the way back. And then he, when I'm gonna get blushing. I don't know if I am dying on my inside, but I wanted to get out of the car as soon as I could. Like, what is wrong with me, you know? He usually would just leave, you know, but he stood there for a minute talking to D, my ex. They started talking, and they, from that moment, started being more buddies, you know. D and my friend's brother became really good friends, and that's when everything kind of changed. And I'm gonna keep going, but I'm gonna cut this video short because it's gonna be a pain to edit. But come back for part 2, where I'm gonna tell you what happened after that. I noticed you, and now I'm comfortable. Now I am uncomfortable. So please come back for part 2.